Look at they're still going on all around me. The fireworks.
Looks like half of that got cut off. See that's poor production quality there.
I think it's just part of the M. Night Shyamalan video effect you're going for there. So don't worry. I like it. It's different. Hey, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Jim, and I'd like to welcome and thank everyone for coming out to this episode of Chill with Jim, where I am in the middle of all these fireworks going off, but I still have my business up top. And if we can see it here, oh, my pajamas on the bottom. I'm in a little different setup here, coming to you live from Michigan, so still getting used to how I set things up. But again, welcome. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, and I am the client advocate for Strix, Louisiana. So it is my job to make sure that our clients are set up with the best equipment, the best software, and the best possible IT solutions to help make sure that their businesses are running at optimal efficiency. We also have David DeArmond with us.
Hey everybody, David DeArmond, owner of Strix, Louisiana. I appreciate you joining us here today.
All right, and so just so everybody knows a little bit more about Strix, Louisiana, we do believe that there's always a better, simpler, more secure way to do just about anything in this world. So what does that mean? Well, that means we are constantly searching and adapting our processes to make sure that we do indeed have the best solutions in place. And we do believe that part of this responsibility is to help bring awareness to our clients as well as others to some of the current IT solutions that are out there right now. We want to bring awareness to security issues or threats that are going on in the community, and then just really just talk about anything that's trending in the IT or technology world today. That's why we've designed this Chill with Jim. And today, actually, we're going to be having a great discussion here because I'm sure, as all of you know, the world of IT and technology can be very massive. There's a lot of different options. There's a lot of different equipment. There's a lot of different software. There's probably like 10, maybe 11 choices out there. So it's a ton. So with so many different choices and options, it's really hard for us to choose which is best for our home, which is best for our businesses, for our company. What solution do I go with? And that's why Strix is here to help. Today, we're going to be going over the differences between what's known as antivirus, which most of you have probably heard of, endpoint detection and response. Also, we're going to be saying EDR to make it a little bit more simple. And then managed detection or managed detection and response. So those are three different concepts that we're going to dive into a little bit to kind of help you understand those solutions that are out there and to make sure that you have the best one in place. Now, so to start it out, we're going to talk about some of the whys. So most breaches are going to start at an endpoint. And David, would you please help us? What's your definition of an endpoint?
Well, it's the end of the connection, I guess you could call it. So generally, when you have a network, it's a bunch of pieces of equipment that are connected. And at some point, you get to the end of that line, and that's where you as in the user, the human, starts interacting with all of the electronics. And so generally speaking, when we're talking about endpoint protection, we're talking about the computer that you're using. That is the last node or the last piece of equipment on a network that is what we as humans use to interact with the electricity going on behind there.
Awesome. Thank you for the description. So nowadays, right now, what's happening is the endpoint has become one of the most popular assets for the bad guys to create an attack, a cybersecurity incident. So this has become a very, very weak point for the bad guys to get in. We've said this 1,000 times, maybe on Chill with Jim, but what David, what's one of the main reasons that that is the weak point?
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way until you just mentioned it. They're gonna the attackers are gonna go where the people are because they're the ones responsible for making mistakes. It's pretty easy to program a computer or a piece of equipment on what to do, what not to do, and every time it's pretty much going to do what it's supposed to do. Humans, not so much. We don't do what we're supposed to do fairly often, and especially when you're tired, when you're maybe sick or just in a hurry, some deadline is approaching, you're going to make mistakes. So that's where the attackers go. And yeah, well, since the humans are using the endpoint, it seems like the natural place for the attackers to go, right?
That's it. That's it. And that's why we're seeing this enormous rise in cyber attacks and breaches that are usually coming in. Their first access is going to be in through an endpoint or a user decision. Now, what's happened as well with COVID-19, I'm sure you've heard of this virus before. What it's done is it increases the amount of people who are now working remotely. So on top of all of the other things, you're looking at new computers being added into a company's infrastructure. Now, sometimes these are business computers, sometimes these are personal computers that the employee has. And security seems to be a place that might become an afterthought. We want to get our employees up and running. We need everybody making money. Get them a computer. Let's roll, 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 and not realize that maybe we didn't configure it correctly. We didn't put the right software in there. Um, and so this has been a very big increase in why these attacks are going up right now as well. And
Yeah,
you're
because
seeing,
as IT professionals, security professionals, within a controlled network, you can put up a lot of barriers between the bad guys and the end user. Once they start leaving that controlled environment, that gets a little bit more difficult to putting up those same barriers.
yep, yep. And like what we faced at the beginning of March or in March was that now everybody wants to be remote. So, okay, let's go buy some remote equipment. Oh my gosh, they're out of laptops right now. They're out of webcams, you know? So what happens there is now you look at businesses who start to bring personal equipment into their situation. So now John and Jane are sharing a personal device that's John's to get their work done because that's the only computer they have until the new one comes in. Created all of these easy attack vectors, I guess we could call them. You know, and on top of the COVID, you're looking at just the huge complexity of data, vulnerabilities. Everything's changing every day. Back in, you know, just a few years ago, just having an antivirus was for your business and a firewall was really it's great protection. It kept most of the bad guys out. But today they're just increasing the different attack vectors, the way that they're coming at you.
Yeah, I guess I've been in the industry now for 21 years. I started my first IT job in 1999, right before the Y2K deal. So that was fun. But anyway, and I remember at that point, it was a small business, and we were deciding do we buy antivirus or do we not buy any? Is it really that big of a threat? And today you wouldn't Windows and Mac, they have it built in, like there are no questions. It exists whether you want it or not. There's some level of protection, and so that shows you just how the landscape has changed in the last 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's really amazing to see it change year to year as well. You just see the different styles of attack, the different ways that they can get in. They found a new secret hole over here that they can send some malicious Trojan or horse up into it that's gonna, you know, do some bad stuff. So it's just amazing to see the different ways. They're always adapting. So, you know, with all this going on, what's the best way for me, for my business, for my family to safeguard all of their data, personal information, and just their equipment in general? And that's kind
Turn
of
it
what we'll
off.
talk about. Yeah, yeah, just don't use it.
Yep.
We heard an FBI guy say that once, that the best way is just not to do it. And you can just have a landline phone. So that's the safest way. But if you still want to continue to use your electronics, we'll go over some of that. Some of these terms that might be associated with each other a lot of times: antivirus, endpoint detection. They're a little bit different. We're going to go into some of that. So, David, I think we'll get some interaction from Brad and anybody else who's out there in our Facebook land as to what they've noticed in the IT world, what they prefer, some of the pros and cons of each. But a lot of this is going to be based off of the approach, the security approach it has. So we're looking at a proactive approach or a reactive approach. So, a reactive approach is like, oh, well, it's probably going to happen. We're probably going to get a malicious attack. So let's put something in there that will detect it and remediate it. And then there's the other way where it's like, we don't want anything coming in at all. So how can we identify the attack before it gets here, make sure it does not get into place and successful? So we'll go over some of those approaches, but most of them that we talk about are going to fall into one, both, or all. Both is all. So we'll go over that right now. Yeah. First of all, you're looking at your antivirus software. So this is just one part of the solution when it comes to protecting your business or your home or your computer. It serves to protect the endpoint. And as David talked about, the endpoint is that device, that machine, that piece of equipment, the individual workstation itself. Its only job is basically to detect and remove what they call malware or malicious software, unwanted code, viruses, things like that. It's going to search for them, detect them, and try to remove them. It'll find things like keyloggers, worms, viruses, ransomware, Trojans. Those are some of the things that it can detect. So antivirus protection works, in the background while you're running other applications. And typically when you download something or install something, it's going to be scanned, and the antivirus program might pull up some warnings or realize that it is indeed a threat. Now with antivirus, these are going to be known threats. Is that correct, David and Brad? Those are
Yeah.
known threats.
Yeah, it's based off of a signature. So every piece of software, it has a signature, and so that the bad guys create a piece of malware, and there's then a signature for that malware. The antivirus is going to keep a list of all of these signatures of every known piece of malware, and it's going to compare anything that you're running on your computer to that known list. And if it sees something that matches, then it will block it or let you know. And but it has to be already known, and so that's where the danger comes in, because of and I don't know if you're going to get into it, the zero-day threats.
That's actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, so with that, and David alluded to it a little bit, but there's a few things on top of that, David. But what about signatureless or fileless attacks that are happening right now? Or you can talk on the 0-day as well. How do those play into your antivirus?
Yeah, well, that's what, for every move that you make in protecting your systems, the criminals make another move to bypass those protections. And so 0-day, that is when something gets deployed quickly. And so the bad guys, they got more efficient. They found a better, simpler way of doing things, less secure. But they get the malware out there so fast that the antivirus doesn't have time to update. It also requires that your antivirus be updated, and so the bad guys try to fit within that window between their malware and when the antivirus will get updated. And that was one of the things as you're deciding, you're looking, well, which antivirus do I choose? Which solution do I choose? Well, how often do they update? How quickly do they update? That was one of the things that you were looking for, and it was to potentially stop those 0-day threats. You mentioned the fileless malware, and that's another.
Scary.
Yeah, that those are tough, and they completely bypass um, traditional antivirus, because the traditional antivirus is looking at the file, and it's comparing this file that you've just opened or tried to open to a known list. Well, so the bad guy said, well, forget the file altogether. And they do it in different ways. They'll write basically an entire program into a registry key. It's the craziest thing. And then they can use a known a known and improved piece of software on your computer to trigger this line of text that's actually a program, but it's not a file. It's not a file. And so
Ah,
antivirus would completely miss it. There was nothing for it to compare to, because it's just pulling a registry key. It just looks like text, and they're able to convert that text into a workable program that then infects your machine. And there's a ton of ransomware. That's one of the primary ways that ransomware spreads. And I remember, if we have time for a story here, one of our clients, it was probably 6 years or more ago, they got hit with ransomware. It infected one of the machines. It started encrypting data, and of course we had even then we had things set in place to overcome that attack. But finding how did they attack was difficult, and I personally thought it was all cleared up. A couple of years ago, we implemented a new piece of software that is able to detect the fileless version of malware, and it went through and actually found from 6 years ago the traces of that fileless malware. And so I'd been able to clean it up enough so that it wasn't causing lasting issues, but it was still, the remnants were still there. And so it tells you, I mean, that was 3-4 years later, that the remnants are still there. And the technology was kind of just rolling out that was affordable for a small business to catch something like that.
yeah. So, and that's
I,
something
I,
that, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think Brad had something to
Yeah,
add there.
go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I was just going to say you have obviously fileless and 0-day, but then you have things like emotet, which are polymorphic. And so even if you have the same infection on the same network, that file is going to change as it goes throughout the network. And antivirus can't keep up. There's no way.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. It's like the flu strand, right? So it's constantly adapting, mutating, changing. Just it's like the Borg. That's what I think. Like Star Trek, the Borg. Yeah, we will assimilate and like just assimilating to whatever you throw at it. So that's one thing, that I think is very important to keep in mind when you're thinking about cybersecurity, is that as soon as we think we got it under control, there's probably a new loophole, a new vulnerability that has been found. So, which is awesome for your mental space when you're working in it all the time. Like, oh, just everything I know just doesn't work anymore. Okay, cool. This is great. Now I just got to relearn a whole entire new system. No, Strix, we're rolling out new software, adding to our stack probably once or twice a month. So we get to learn new software all the time, but it is because we're constantly adapting to these threats. As soon as you think you've got it figured out, someone else figures out something different, or you realize things like he talked about 6 years later, it took that long for the software to catch up with these little remnants of that program. So we're always changing. So that's a good point to think about. So antivirus software is very important, but it's not the end all be all when it comes to ensuring that your business or your home is totally protected. Now, does anyone else have any pros or cons about the antivirus before we moved on to the EDR while we're comparing things here? Anything on the old Facebook?
No, sir.
All right. So, well, next, what we're looking at next is the endpoint detection and response, which is also known as an EDR security system, or response system, or process, or approach. So, you're looking at this on a much different level here than just one program, one antivirus running. It does include your antivirus, so that's part of this solution, but it also is going to contain many other security tools like firewall, whitelisting, monitoring tools. It gives you more of a comprehensive protection against most of the digital threats that are out there. It helps a lot with some of the human error that you are going to face with bad decisions. It can help remediate or stop those decisions from going through before they go through. It's like that pause button, like, oh, you didn't mean to delete that file. I know you didn't. We saved it for you. So, but it's usually running on like the company server, as well as all of most of their infrastructure is going to have little bits and pieces of that puzzle protecting the entire entity as itself. And it includes the endpoints. So you're looking at a more inclusive, all around security solution that includes your antivirus. Now, it's basically like a digital kind of perimeter that creates around your business. So multiple layers. We talk about layers a lot in Chill with Jim. What are some of the other things you can see with an EDR solution? Anyone who's on the call today.
Yeah, with antivirus, it was very singular. So it was watching that single computer, and what you saw is a kind of morph, and they have systems called EPPs, the endpoint protection platform or program. I don't remember exactly, and that was a little bit more comprehensive, and so it looked at maybe a network as a whole. And you'll see that like with WebRoot, it can kind of look at the entire platform. And then that grew a little bit more into EDR. And really the important thing there is that R. So endpoint detection, that's basically antivirus. It's detecting, okay, something's going on this machine, but the response. And so what modern EDRs are, and we use Sentinel-1 here, there's CrowdStrike out there as well. What they do is they respond automatically. What they're trying to do is limit the damage caused to the entire network. So they're going to recognize that something's going on. They're going to watch behavior as well. So if a computer starts doing something that it's really not supposed to, it's reaching out to servers and to other computers on the network and in a way that doesn't look right. The EDR, it's going to respond, and depending on how you have it set up, it can cut that endpoint off from the rest of the network. And what it's really trying to do is limit the amount of damage that it can do. Like Brad mentioned with Emotet, it spreads throughout the network. And it is looking to get as far as it can go and infect as many machines as it can. And so the EDR is going to automatically respond. And if it sees Emotet behavior, it's going to cut that device off from the network so that it can't talk to anything else.
Very important there to cut it off. If you want a solution that provides that quarantining, because as soon as something like that is detected, you need to get that device off of the same network, because these things will move laterally. It'll move throughout. Oh, it got into this computer. Now it's going to get over into this little device over here, which is going to transfer over here. So you lock it off.
Yeah. And you don't have time to wait on a person to get the alert, analyze it, get onto the machine, or try to get on the machine and lock that machine down. That's too much time. So you want to catch it much earlier.
So yeah, that's what they say. One of their big sales points here is they're providing real time response to the threats. So it's always going on. It's constantly analyzing. It's protecting all of the devices. So we like that comprehensive approach. And then also it's collecting data that you can use later for forensics. So if you do need to investigate a incident that happened or look back at some kind of incident response and how it was handled, these EDR systems are going to have much better logging and reporting than your traditional.
Yeah, Brad, that kind of functionality, the ability to log, that's important in your line of work, right?
It is. Yeah, logging is huge. And I mean, it allows you, I think obviously the biggest thing of EDR, you can somewhat threat hunt. You can kind of go out there and say, you know, what is going on, and it allows you to do that. Even post mortem. I mean, you can go back and figure out what happened.
Yeah,
that's great. I get so excited when and David did it already, and now Brad did it. But when they mentioned something that I was just about to bring up, because yeah, like some of the benefits of EDR that a lot of people rave about, and that some of the things you want to consider when you're thinking about this is it's like a threat hunting. You're out there, you're hunting for threats that are active or that are about to begin. It does have a ransomware rollback. Typically, most of them are going to have. So if you're hit with a ransomware attack, it gives you this feature where you can go back in time, Marty McFly style, and go back to before when the ransomware was hit. Super, super important. You have improved visibility, which we talked about with the reporting and things like that. But then you don't have to worry about that response time. It's automatic. It's nanoseconds. Like David said, there's no one just sitting there watching it. It's just automatic. So there's no delay. It just does it. We in our field of work, we'd much rather error on the side of caution. So that means if we cut that computer off from the network and it's not even infected, that's okay. We don't care. We'd much rather have it cut itself off as a warning and us go back and see that, okay, it wasn't anything super wrong here, just a false alarm. And then I don't know, David Brin, if you're in, but do you see any more pros or cons of the EDR system? Are there things that you appreciate about it, or am I catching you at a bad time? I'm trying to get some involvement.
No,
oh, hey, there you are. Look at that.
I am very.
What's up, man?
This side of the security stuff. So this is more of a learning sit-in for me than some of the other sessions have been, because I'm just now kind of getting to this part of that part of my learning journey. So this was kind of hey, this was really interesting to sit in and learn about. We have talked about endpoint a little bit. One of the questions I do have is, you know, as you have these systems where they automatically shut themselves off, are systems built for redundancy so something else picks it back up, or does your system shut down entirely and your team has to go in and figure out, you know, how to get yourself back up and running at that point?
Yeah, I mean that really, I guess, depends on which endpoint is the one that's infected. So if you're talking about a server, then there may be redundancy built in. If you're talking about a workstation, then there may not be redundancy, because what we're doing, like Jim mentioned, we're trying to limit the damage. And if we've got one person that is unable to use their computer for a few hours, it's not ideal, but at least we didn't have lateral spread of malware. So we're not too worried about the redundancy there. But if you're talking about a server, then you may set up things different. If you've got malware on your server, though, you're definitely losing the chess game at that point, because you've got a high value target that is already under attack, and so generally we're going to see those first initial attacks coming on the workstations, and we're not too worried about redundancy at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, great point though. Also something to consider when you're looking at backup and recovery options um, for those what ifs. So our solution we do have for our clients with the backup and recovery of their servers does have an image-based backup every 30 minutes, I believe. So
For the
something
servers, yeah.
happened. Yeah, the servers, yep, every 30 minutes. So if something happens within that 30 minutes, there is a successful attack. We can limit the effect by going back before the attack happened, getting the server back up, getting everybody back up and running, and then continuing our remediation.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that's exactly what we did 6 years ago when that client got hit by ransomware. Uh, we did the old manual disconnect from the network by actually unplugging the infected device off of the network. The bells and whistles started going off, but it was too late. It had already started encrypting files. That's okay. We had backup. I don't remember if we lost really anything. I don't think any of the files that it had that the ransomware had time to encrypt. I don't think any of that was within the last 30 minutes to an hour that we were backing up. And so it took a little bit of time to restore all of those files, but the restore was on site. That does bring up another thing though that you have to keep in mind, because again the bad guys get smart, and we spend time every single week looking at our backups, making sure that they're continuing to run like they're supposed to, because the bad guys, they'll get into a machine, they'll sit there quietly, they'll work their way, they'll find the backup, they'll turn it off, or they'll break it in some way, and then they'll just let it sit. You have 30 days worth of backup. Okay, we'll just wait 30 days. And you're not going to have any backups 30 days, and then trigger it. And the IT guy's like, oh yeah, you got me. Okay, I'll just restore from my backup. And oh no, I don't have backup. And that, their face flushes, they start puking in the garbage can because they realize everything is gone.
yeah, or they do have ways now of ransomwaring your backup as well. So, oh, it's okay. They ransomwared us. We got a backup. Oh no, it's all encrypted. So
Yeah,
things.
that's where all that cyber hygiene that we talk about over and over again. That's where all of that comes into play. I mean, we're talking about just a few items here today, but you have to build that entire cybersecurity program within your. It's a culture really within your organization if you really want to protect yourself.
Right. Yep. Build up those layers. Build up that onion. So, and then next, what we're going to talk about is a managed EDR, which is just managed endpoint detection and response. Now, a few things here that they've added to the EDR solution to help make it better, to be a step up, another layer to your protection. As we're talking about, well, this one, your managed EDR is going to use artificial intelligence to stop advanced threats and malware at the most vulnerable point, the endpoint, which we've talked about already. But what it does is it's a prevention first type technology where it stops before the harm is caused. Now, EDR does this as well. It's trying to do this, but managed EDR has just a few more bells and whistles to help protect that and to kind of guarantee that a little bit better. So instead of letting the attacks happen and cleaning up the mess, this is going to reduce the amount of attacks. You're thinking about it and you kind of look at it as the response time that we're talking about earlier. Well, when you add in the artificial intelligence and the other managed aspects of this, makes that response time even quicker. And the endpoint solution just becomes that much more secure. There's a lot of different things that go on inside of the managed response, detection and response, but it does happen quite a lot faster. It
Yeah,
resolves the alert.
that managed part of it is important. So like we talked about with antivirus is kind of endpoint detection. The R that you add is that response. Well, with MDR, the important thing is that M, it's managed. And so usually there's the artificial intelligence that you're talking about, and then there's some human intelligence behind it too. And what it's really looking to do, we talked several weeks ago about the kill chain, right? And so that's all of the steps that an attacker goes through. And MDR, EDR really, and MDR, they keep moving up a little bit higher in the kill chain. So MDR is going to be getting information from more of your endpoints, not necessarily just your computer. It's going to be looking at all of your nodes as well. So your firewall, it's going to be looking at perhaps if you have IoT devices, anything that's out there, even your cloud endpoints, and it's going to be gathering logs. It's looking at all of the information, and it's so much information. A human is not built to go through that much information. The artificial intelligence can be, though, and it can start picking out all those little indicators, those needles in the haystack, and it can see it as the attacker is starting their attack. And as it detects it, it starts sending off flashes, and then you have a human, the managed part of it. They're managing it. They're looking and saying, okay, well, I see what this is. Yes, that's normal. We'll create a rule so artificial intelligence knows in the future to ignore that. But wait a minute, that doesn't look right. Let me look a little bit further. And to this point, the attacker hasn't truly broken anything. They've broken in, or maybe they're trying to break in, and they're finding, they're almost there, but the indicators are there, and managed detection, someone's looking at that, and they're gonna go ahead and respond before it gets to that point. So you mentioned early on the prevention versus reaction, proactivity versus reactivity. The MDR moves it further up to that proactive point of where before they can really get a foothold, we're going to detect them and block them.
So yeah, speed is the speed of response, of recognition is much higher. But yeah, I like that. The managed part is you got your artificial intelligence helping out with the human intelligence. So that's the managed part of it. And so David, would this be a SOC, a SIEM? Are these examples of would you consider them an example of part of an MDR as an MDR solution itself?
Yeah, the MDR is really everything all combined. I would say it's taken all of the pieces. So you mentioned SOC and SIEM. Your SOC that's the people. That's the people that are looking at it. Security Operations Center. They're looking at the information. The SIEM is the tool. That's the tool that's gathering all of the information, and usually the artificial intelligence that is digging into it a bit. And so you put those together along with, and usually your EDRs, your SentinelOnes, CrowdStrikes, WebRoot, whatever AV, they're reporting back to the SIEM, and then the SOC is looking at it. And so you see it builds this ecosystem of security, and that's why it's managed, because it's not just a tool, it's not just a person, it is an entire environment that is being managed.
There you go. Yeah. So great explanation of that. And some of those big benefits, you're going to get 100% transparency of everything that's going on because you're in it, you're there, you're recognizing it. Someone's helping you understand it, which is a big thing. We can all collect data on stuff, but if we don't know what the heck we're looking at, it's not really worthwhile. It concentrates on resolving every issue it finds, either through its own artificial intelligence solution or through the human aspect of things. It is going to find every alert and resolve it. And then, you like David talked about, we talked about, it usually comes with a highly trained SOC, which is your team of human analysts that help understand those flags and that data that it's getting. So really, deciding between all three of these, there's so many different things to think about. I know one of them is, we have business people on here. One of them is budget. So you really have to see what fits best for your organization and for the price point. So, you know, just a little bit about us. We do use the Sentinel-1, which is a great tool to add, but we also have, we talk about this stack. So we have this stack of different tools we use for different things to help really create a totally fully managed, fully secure of kind of suite of things. Now that's not going to work for everybody's business, and that's not going to work for everybody's budget. So budget's something we want to be very conscious of. The size of your network. You're going to look at how many people you have, how many remote workers you have. You know, do you require a centralized security council, or is it okay for everybody just to kind of have their own security in place? David, there are other things that our companies, our people out there should be looking into when they're shopping around, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you have to do that risk analysis. So number one, how secure do you need your data to be? So if you're in the medical field, there are requirements behind what you do, and you have to take additional steps, and you really have to, according to the regulation, if you don't want to get fined, you have to put more in place. And so if you're in the medical industry, you're going to want to spend more money. You're going to want to look more at the very least the EDR, the endpoint detection and response, but you really ought to be at the managed detection and response, the MDR. You know, Brad, their company does DoD work. They're required to get all of this information, see all of this information, and at the level they are, they pretty much have to have an MDR in place, basically. So you look at your data now. If your data is not very valuable and you're willing to risk it a little bit, maybe you just go with the antivirus. Even the Windows Defender that's the free version of antivirus that comes directly with Windows. It's rating very well these days, and it kind of brings up a whole other class of protection, which is the application whitelisting. And that's something new that we're kind of looking at. Brad's wearing the Threat Locker shirt there. They are absolutely the best that I've seen in application whitelisting, and I've looked at application whitelisting over the last, you know, the first time I saw it was probably 10 years ago. The difficulty with it, it's always been a great idea, and what application whitelisting means is you create a list of everything that is okay to run on an endpoint, and anything that's not on that list just doesn't get to run. Okay. The problem is if you're very strict with that, well, no programs can update because now they're different. To install new software is difficult because, hey, it's not on the list. We have to teach the application whitelist program how to do it. What Threat Locker has done is made that much easier to manage that. The first solution I looked at years ago, it worked as far as creating a more secure environment, but it was very difficult to work in. It's kind of like that FBI agent suggested, well, you just turn it all off, don't use it. Okay, yeah, I mean, but then we can't do the things that we're trying to do. So what we're kind of looking at now is do we use antivirus with application whitelisting? Or do we use EDR? Do we use all three? How much do we put in place? And really, getting back to your original question, it depends how sensitive is your data and how risky is your environment. If you've got everybody working remotely now, you need better protection because there are not the other barriers put in place. So you want your protection to increase.
Good point. Good point. David, Brad, I know Brad has very strict certification he needs to be within their guidelines, but David, for your establishment, for Code Ninjas, what do you have in place for the kiddos? Like, what are you making sure that they're, how are you protecting the network there?
I know the network here, we've got, kind of like what you guys are talking about with access controls. We do have the server set up to where they can't get to certain websites and those basic things like that. But we kind of more are in the realm of, are we generating data that necessitates higher end security? Not really at this point. It's more everything that we generate for credit cards and payments and stuff like that, that goes through Code Ninja's systems itself. So the corporate entity kind of handles the security on that end with our CRM and our payment systems. So we're not really generating a lot of data or anything else like that on this end. We're more controlling what websites they're visiting and what they're clicking on and those kinds of things. So we have to kind of protect against, the kids getting creative about downloading for Minecraft and what they're clicking on in that realm. And we've had a couple oopses. We've had to reset a couple laptops.
Yep. Sounds like David downloading.
They get very creative as to what they find, and you're like, how did you even what?
Yeah, I tell you what, y'all are working kind of like in a petri dish over there, because you've got kids that are curious, and I mean they're showing up at code. Yeah, they're showing up.
They're changing administrative names, and we're like, screen, and they're like, I don't know, it just popped up, and I'm like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a fun environment.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about kind of at that level, because I start my my ethical hacking class on the 12th, and I'm just thinking in my head, like, who is this for? And I had all my favorite 80s, 90s, and millennium movies, and I'm like, it's probably not really for people like myself. And how this stuff works.
I think David has the true insider threat.
He really does.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember my graphics class finding a way to get LimeWire on the computer so I could download music. Yes. It was great back then. I mean, it only took you like a day and a half to download one song.
My favorite story like that is I worked for a contractor in DC several years back, and the group they were all computer geeks and whatnot, and they were like, well, what software do you need for yourself? What are you trying to teach yourself? I was like, well, what do you mean? What do you have access to? And they go, no. What do you need? And it apparently we had a lot of stuff that we.
That's awesome. Now, what is it you need? Got it all. So yeah, that's a good point. Look at your business, evaluate your antivirus, your endpoint solution, your managed. You got to really take into account how risky your data is, how secure you need it, and then you can get into your options. And you can get lost in all this stuff. But the one we use, Sentinel-1, as an endpoint security solution we've really, really liked it. And they do have an option that will guarantee against ransomware protection for up to $1 million. So that's been pretty cool, but there's tons of other options out there. Really just gotta evaluate what's going on within your business. If grandma on her Facebook looking at pictures, we don't need to get the EDR for her, but we're still going to want to probably get some antivirus on there. Actually, with my grandma, we want to get the MDR in there because she's clicking on everything and signing up for everything you could ever imagine. But that's really what we need to look at. If you do have any questions, reach out to us at any time. I hope I touched on a lot of the good talking points here. If I'm missing anything, please, any of you jump in and mention something else. Holy cow. I answered everyone's question in the world. This is awesome.
I mean, you mentioned at the beginning, but I don't think it can be downplayed or how obviously COVID was a big driving force in a lot of this. but the traditional way everyone looked at security was protected the perimeter. Well, the perimeter moved everybody's house, and so the endpoint, every endpoint becomes a perimeter. And so really solutions like EDR and MDR are your only option. You can't rely just on a firewall at the corporate office to handle everything, because it can't.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's another I guess point about using like a VPN, something like that, and that helps you extend your perimeter, but it only goes so far. Like we had the Chill with Jim episode about the routers, the home routers that people are using, and they're running on Linux operating systems that are 10, 15 years old, with thousands of known vulnerabilities, and they're not being updated. So that when you've got your endpoints behind those devices, whew, scary stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the VPNs. I mean, they're not foolproof by any means.
Not at all.
Because if that one endpoint gets compromised, if you have, most VPNs are set up as split tunnels. So it's got one connection to that home network that could be compromised, and then the other connection is going back to your corporate office. Well, you have a gap between those two. And if someone wanted to, if they knew how to, they could spread from that home network to that endpoint and then to the corporate network, bypassing everything you thought you had in place.
Yep.
Yeah, you're almost opening up more windows by using the VPN that way, and that might need. I know we talked about VPNs previously, but I don't remember if we got into split tunnel and full tunnel and all of that. But that might need to be. Yeah, that might need to be a whole other
it gets
episode.
Convoluted, so.
It does.
We'll be losing like a few losers, a few of the watching participants. They're gonna be like, man, these guys are talking all this tech stuff all the time. But no, I think so. Some great points. One thing I did want to throw out there while we're talking about having a managed solution, just how beneficial that can be to a business. So if you think about, if you do have like an EDR solution, or if you have these tools and protections in place, if you are paying one of your employees to manage that, and they're not qualified, or maybe it's like the side thing that they do because the most responsibilities are within the company doing something else, this can create a lot of issues. You're looking at what the expense you're paying that employee to kind of know what he's doing and set up things. So you're it's very expensive for that, when you could have a managed company come in and help you manage your tools. You pay them, but everything's covered. Again, it's people look at, they want to kind of patch in their security and find, oh, we know John's the uncle of the owner, and he says he does computer stuff, so we'll let him take care of all of our stuff, and he's not that expensive. But when you look at all of these things we talk about through, Chill with Jim, it's best, we recommend to have a company that's overlooking all of it and helping you see where those holes are, helping you manage the softwares you have in place. Because like I said, we could all get data. I could get a spreadsheet of 1,000 things right now, but if I don't know how to understand, if I only understand 10% of what's on there, what good is that data? So managed is perfect if you have the resources to do managed. A lot of the when you're starting a business, they say, if you're not good at accounting, outsource your accounting, because we do not want you doing your own books. It's very similar to technology. If you don't feel comfortable with your solution, find one that works. That's all I got on that one.
Yep. Good stuff. If you look at the total cost, finding a managed solution, it's, if you've got a 25-person office, the managed solution is going to cost you less than or around the cost of a single employee, and that's to get almost all the bells and whistles. It'll basically cost a lower wage employee. But what you get behind you, a SOC, a SIEM, a EDR, all of these fancy little acronyms that we've used throughout 2020 here, you're going to get all of it. And so if you look at the total cost, it go with the managed solution.
That's in writing about a lot of this. That's what drives me absolutely insane is all the arguments against managed services or going to a complete managed service and trying to do part of it in-house and part of it out. Just go with a completely outsourced. I mean, that the company that you're going to choose or end up with, that's their bread and butter. That is exactly what they're spending their 9 to 5 doing, is securing systems and managing systems and everything else, letting you spend your 9 to 5 churning profit, making money, handling clients. Like let people do what they're good at.
Yeah.
If people know what they're good at, and if you can afford one person, you can afford a team that's part of your outsourced solution.
Yeah. And go ahead, Brad.
Oh, I mean, I wanted to, I mean, obviously it's great to hear Strix talk and say, hey, go manage. But, I think so I've been on both sides of the world, so to speak. I've worked for an MSP like Strix, and I've worked for a company like QRI where I'm at now. And I think it's crucial. Now, it used to be that you could say, hey, we install this, it'll update, and that's antivirus, and you're good to go. The world is not like that anymore. And so if you think that you can just set it and forget it, and you have one IT person that's going to be able to handle it all, that there's no way. And that person could be the brightest person, but they are one person. And so when you go managed, you get, those resources that one person just can't offer.
Yeah, for the sake of that good IT person, get a managed solution, because the smart, even if it's a super smart, inexpensive IT person, they're going to want to sleep. They're going to want to take a day off. They're going to want to go on vacation. Give them a break, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to leave now.
Awesome. Well, I think this has been this great feedback. Really, when I was we were getting ready for these topics, you never know how they're going to pan out. But this one came out really good discussion, and I appreciate both of you having your feedback, and all 3,028,000 of you on Facebook with your feedback. So I'd love to wish everyone a happy New Year's. That's why I am rocking this 2021.
Oh, that's what I thought you just combed your hair different.
Yeah. They're supposed to be glasses, but I couldn't really see out of them. So they are now a hat. And that's why we've been shooting off these fireworks in the background the whole time. We'd love to wish everyone a happy New Year. Thank you for supporting us. This has been our first year of Chill with Jim. It's really been pretty magical. And we do appreciate the support and the guidance and knowledge you guys have given us. And David, what do we have next year?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are coming back next year. Don't you worry about it. So the first topic that we're going to talk about in 2021 are the business productivity trends in 2021. We saw everything shift in 2020. So what are we looking at for 2021? We're going to go with about as good as we can do, because if there's one thing that 2020 showed us, none of us knows what's up ahead. But we'll pick up on the things that we think might be happening in 2021.
Yep. So that link is in the chat there for those who would like to join us. As always, it's the same chill time on the same chill network. Again, we do appreciate all of the support, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Enjoy your new year and happy holidays.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, guys.